this is going to be an interesting one, right? Because when you pick the Restoration Druid into the Restoration Shaman, you're basically asking Unix to spam Purge and try win the game quickly. But Elementals are really good at kiting and also just tanky in general, right? Because of the stuns and also the Astral Shift.
Right, and the same thing with the Warrior, and that's what always was the good thing. So they're immediately opening up on the Nux, just trying to pop the Dragon, popping the Pillar of Frost, popping those, just trying to use all of his Stormbreath and Fire stacks right there, trying to get as much pressure onto him in the opener, forcing that Iron Bark, because I think they realized they're not going to be able to get that pressure onto Iroh. He's going to be able to kite them with those knocks, those, having that wall and everything like that. So, I mean, immediately they realized that, wow, they just get so much pressure onto Sarah Taylor right there, just forcing so much damage onto him, getting the IBF in the opener and the Spirit Link already. I mean, this game is just looking super, super into Gronks' favor right now. And again, they're just coming in with great blind picks. Every time it seems like they've really, really understood their opponents and what compositions they can play. And I think that is what makes their team so scary. They seem to be really prepared for anyone they're going up against.
Yeah, it really does. And I mean, Iroh especially, like, he comes in for, like, I think they had Legends on their team last time around. He was playing
they did.
the Moonkin, but Iroh definitely, Elemental fits perfectly into the meta right now. You have so many options, and he has been the point of versatility. But now we see the swap over onto Volshock, dropping low, double stuns. He actually used Trinket here, getting spam purged by Unix. You can see his mana bar is dropping so low because of this all-in strategy, but it might work out for them. Double Bark coming out, Trinket as well. Volshock should survive in this situation, but he survives at a huge cost though, right? There was a lot of defensive cooldowns. One more setup onto him with the Death Grip could easily be the game.
But do they even have the other setup? That was Pillar. Yeah, that was Pillar. They have no karma. He has the full X. He's dead. That's it.
Wow. It was so back and forth. Unix was dropping low, Volshock as well. They went all in for that play. They didn't have the Spirit Link there, and I mean, that is what you say, right? Like when you play the Restoration Shaman comp, you can see his after 1 minute as well. He's used all of his mana bar, so he didn't have any healing or purges left. But it was such a close game, and it just took them a little too long, perhaps, to connect to Volshock if that's the strategy they want to employ. But at the end of the day, I actually didn't expect Unix to die that quickly, for what it's worth. I mean, he used his Karma offensively, but normally the Windwalker has a lot of kiting potential, so you'd expect him to live a little longer, but that's what Thundercleave does to you, right? Elemental Burst, couple of stuns from the Warrior, Mole Strike, and you can definitely take the game fast.
I think that actually demonstrates just how comfortable Gronks is, though, because normally a team in that situation, you get all in really hard and you don't feel confident just taking a defensive window, right? Even if it exists. But even though they were just, in this window where Voltrak almost died, they immediately recognized, they actually just pushed in a little bit too far, and they immediately punished it and killed them just super quickly, in almost an unexpected go. And Iroh just realizing that he could just end the game right there. If he gets that Hex, he's able to just finish the game just cleanly there. I mean, they just put them on this short timer, and normally in those kind of situations, you have to really, really wait for that timer to completely end. And they just make sure that they just really cleanly take the win without having to even worry about a second go.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously this is a huge game for both these teams, right? Like, this is the 2016 qualifier to the North American regionals from the ANZ region versus, of course, the team that made it to BlizzCon last year, Unitas, playing that Windwalker Death Knight. It was an incredibly close game, but Gronks definitely looking strong, like you said, Dilly, pulling out that one in the blind pick on the Grand Arena. So they're 1-0 up in the series right now. And I mean, let's just take a second to explain the actual format of this year, like how important this is. Like, only 3 teams from the ANZ region are going to qualify to that Asia Pacific regional final, right? It's not that many spots available, and winning this series will put you in the top 3 for this cup. There's 4 cups total, and it's a point distribution similar to what we're familiar with for North America and Europe over the last couple of years. But you want to be in that top 3, right? Like, if the top 3 teams are going to be the ones qualifying, and you can do that by achieving this series, this is a big series for both these teams to win.
I just love seeing how much some of these teams are just prepared for each other or just really improved.
It's good.
I mean, even LFG strats, right? No, I honestly wouldn't have expected them to do as well as they did. Just having such a close showing up against super veteran teams, and there's someone that hasn't even been seen either. It's almost like the Australia region is like the king of the upsets, You always have some team, no one expects them, and they just come in there and they just upset everyone and just go through and just really put up these awesome performances. And I mean, that's what I feel like I've always seen out of the Australian region the past few years. So even seeing that in their own region is actually pretty interesting.
I mean, it's pretty cool because obviously they won the Mythic Dungeon Invitational back last year, and then they've got a couple of strong teams again this year. The Free Marcy pulling off some of the best times, so they really are capable of. If you undercut this region, they're going to catch you off guard and really take the wins. We haven't seen this so much in PvP just yet, but there's definitely been a few times where Asia Pacific especially has pulled off those wins, like we saw Coding's teams in the past. And I think ANZ, it's fair to say, has been starting to overtake Korea a little bit in that regard. So definitely putting themselves at the forefront of this region. And it's these two teams that have been doing it, right? It's Gronks and Unitas that have been doing that. So it's great to see them battle it out because we've actually never seen this matchup on broadcast. These teams have never played each other. Gronks played 2016, but then they actually couldn't play in 2017 for personal reasons. So they just weren't able to play together. Now they're back and they're really upsetting Unitas. They're saying, hey, this is our region. We're going to pull it off. And let's see if they can continue that in game 2.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think the Dalaran Stewards just makes that matchup just a little bit different, so things are going to be a bit scarier for them. But I mean, things are just really awesome in the last game. I love how quickly they were able to just turn that pressure as soon as they knew that they weren't going to die anymore. That's the best thing to see from anyone playing a defensive composition like Thundercleave. That's something that you only see really the best Thundercleaves do. And I mean, the composition itself was already a good counter pick when we saw it at BlizzCon, but it was really much longer games. Like they would really play to outlast them just being extra scared. But Gronks just immediately, I just love that they immediately go offensive when they know they're not going to die. That's a sign of a really good team.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, Unitas, they are the aggressive team in this matchup. So they're the one that will be pushing onto Iroh. We see the stun over onto Volchok, forcing out that Iron Bark defensive cooldown, 20% damage reduction over onto Iroh right now. Should be able to kite away, actually trying to land a bit of damage of his own with the Stormkeeper. We see full cooldowns now coming out of Unix. He's committed the Touch of Death. We see all of those. He's using the Fortified Brew to stay offensive. Now the Iron Bark is down as well. Iroh actually gets the double stun. Is it going to be a swap over onto Volchok? Looks like it will be.
Yeah, oh my god, they jump him so hard with the very end of the touch of that. I mean, they get a lot of burst onto him. If they do get another setup onto Volchok, he's going to be in a lot of trouble because he's had to use both of his skins. They do have the Pillar of Frost coming up just a little bit before that next Iron Bar comes back up. But I mean, Volchok probably will be able to stay alive. He will have that trinket available, so even if they do get the Pillar on him, I think he will be able to blink and run away. But I mean, that is still just a lot of scary pressure they got on him. And they're chunking him so hard, getting those Blood Elf silences out of those stuns. That's where things get super scary for you as a healer.
Yeah, you've got to be really careful here, but it looks like they're actually trying to split their pressure a little bit more in this game. Volchok blinking away, able to get behind the pillar, but now Iroh is going to be exposed. We have the purges available from Unix, who gets knocked away, blinks back in, Iroh kiting away desperately, just has to stay alive. Like we were saying, if they survive a few minutes, just this Thundercleave composition, they will survive it. Unix using a lot of mana for that aggression. We see preemptive bear form on the stun from Volchok. Huge play by him, but it might not be enough. Iroh dropping low, barely gets that astral shift. Now we see the blinding sheet coming out of the Death Knight here, trying to help his team. Hex comes out, instantly dispelled by Iroh, who's playing so well in this game. Volchok taking a bit of damage, but with the bark skin, should be able to kite away here. His name is caught up in
trying to recover
again. Doesn't have the touch of karma and is able to fall once again. And that's the second time Gronks have done that. They've caught this Windwalker Monk off guard. Beautiful Stormbolt coming out there from Nux, and he's able to take the second game for his team. Touch of karma was available there, but they couldn't get it off in time.
Yeah, I mean that's just the thing that it's so impressive to just know that a team's confident enough that even though you're setting up onto them and even though they don't really have as much crowd control, I mean, they immediately just get this pressure to get these kills. And Nux, I feel like he's actually such a good multi-classer. I feel like you can put him on anything, and putting him on his warrior, he does really well. He has done well in Ret Paladin. He's done well on his rogue, obviously. I mean, he is definitely just finding all these kill opportunities, finishing the game off well. And Iroh definitely looking like a really solid fourth for this team. I love the addition of him.
It's so cool because like quite often you see these teams, like especially in regions such as Australia, New Zealand, where the player pool is slightly lower. I mean, like that's a fact, right? Like there's less teams competing in the tournament. It's harder to find those like well-rounded 4-man rosters. So you often see teams that have 2 or 3 very solid players, but then one perhaps they don't use so much. But that's what Gronks don't have here. Like Gronks have 4 teams, 4 players that they're very confident in. And Iroh, the new member of the team, looking so strong on that Elemental Shaman. Very interested to see how far he'll go. And I mean, they're poised to win this series 3-0, which means we're going to see what you wanted to see, Dilly, that potential Turbo Cleave matchup, which will be incredibly exciting. Turbo versus Thunder, for example.
Yeah, that seems really interesting to me. I mean, I think I'm just impressed in general how much all these regions have really improved because, you know, like you said, the player pool obviously hasn't been super high, but it's always been a region I felt has had good players. Like and the fact that these players always play with such high latency too, and they're able to perform this well. I mean, that already is just, it's like you have training weights on, you get to a LAN, and then now you don't have 300 MS, and then you're just a LAN god, right? And I mean, you've seen that happen with people like Channels. You know, comes in there.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, that's the thing, right? Like, these guys are playing with so much ping, but I mean, obviously they're playing against each other right now, so it's a little bit more fair. But come the live event, like a lot of these North American and European teams who are playing, you know, with the 30 ping are suddenly like, whoa, where did these guys come from? You know, especially with a composition like with Morka Death Knight, mewhere, you know, playing melees with 300 ping, like I don't like playing a caster with 300 ping. So
exactly.
Not the nicest, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
that shows how good these guys are.
Yeah, and I mean, not just that though. It's like these teams do well on ladder too. I mean, these players still get rank 1 with this thing, where they have like their entire team is Australian. It's not just like, oh, I'm one Australian person playing with like 2 NA players, and you know, maybe it's not as bad that my latency is this high, but your entire team is Australian. Your entire team has 300 MS. You're going up against the best of the best on another region, and you're still getting rank 1. I mean, that definitely shows that. Okay, put you on a LAN. Now you have the same ping as them, or you're going to obviously do super well.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, Channel is a prime example of that. But another one is, of course, Primes, who is playing on this team here for Unitas. And they're the ones that have their back against the wall right now. It's 0-2 favoring the Gronks. So we're waiting for the map choice and, of course, the composition choice. So let's have a little look at it. Like, the Thunder Cleave clearly is performing very, very well into this Windwalker Death Knight. But the problem is, I think it will also perform very well into the Destruction Warlock, right? Like Thundercleave actually traditionally was the Warlock counter because it's so good at denying damage from him. So do you think there's any chances we'll see composition swaps from either team?
Honestly, if anything could swap, I would feel like it would just be in Holy over Frost. And even in Holy, I don't see it doing that much better. He's still going to have a really hard time. I think that they have sort of exposed a little bit of a weakness with Unitas as far as their compositions go. You know, they have multiple comps to play, but there's still these gaps where they don't really cover for everything. And I think Gronks is always able to find where a team has that specific weakness and has to come prepared for that kind of style. And they're very well rounded. And both of these teams, I think, are obviously very, very good. It just happens to be that, you know, Gronks being more well-rounded and having more answers for almost every team, and you just not always having that perfect answer yet, you know?
We'll have to see. I mean, that's one of the advantages of playing 4 cups, right? You've got some time to find some answers, but here in the first cup, it is 2-0 in favor of Gronks right now. We're in game 3. Ruins of Lordaeron is the map choice, unsurprisingly, coming out of Team Unitas here, who are playing that all-in aggressive composition. They got Unix on the Restoration Shaman, spamming out those purges, and of course Streaming and Unix, and the Monk Nate there playing, going for the all-in with Primes, of course. He's been doing so much damage for this team. If they can get one more good connection over onto Volshock, you get the feeling they can pull this one back, but they're definitely up against it as we head into potentially the final game of the series.
Yeah, and I mean, they're going for that little smaller opener onto Iroh, and they're just going to force him, you know, he's just going to use that Thunderstorm, just trying to get them away from him, you know, just try to peel a little bit. They still have all their damage here, so maybe Unitas is going to look for a little bit more of a conservative setup. They maybe are going to try to hold on to their cooldowns and try to get maybe a perfect go, because the way things have gone haven't been working out too well, and they have a Pillar of Frost. Immediately gets disarmed though by Nux. He just has such quick reaction times, ready to peel almost immediately, knows that he's going to save his teammates here. And now we have that Serenity being used from Nate there, just trying to get that extra pressure onto Iroh right now and just do as much damage as they possibly can.
Yeah, it looks like they are, but they did force the PvP trinket out of Volshock, which is huge since they do have that touch of death available on Prime. So he might be looking for a swap at some point in the near future. We see Iroh dropping low. They're trying to bait out that Iron Bark, especially onto him, but they could also all in with the Purges here. It looks like they might be going for that since the preemptive bear form came out of Volshock once again. We see good defensive fear from Nooks, who has been on fire so far for his team. The Hex is also denied coming out of Unix, so no follow-up crowd control. They do force the Astral Shift, though, so they do definitely have an opening onto Iroh if they can keep up this momentum.
Yeah, they've been getting that pressure there. I mean, I think the thing to be scared of is just, I think once they get to that point where we've seen before, they kind of run out or one of those defensives or something like that, they've been able to get kills almost every single time at unexpected windows. So I think Unitas is probably going to be a little bit more scared of fully committing until they're absolutely sure they're going to be safe, because so many times they've just been in the middle of a kill window, get killed, and I think it's just been punishing them so hard. I mean, they have the touch of death go right now, and it could be really scary, but they're not able to get too much damage with it. They've been peeled almost immediately every single time they get
that.
Yeah.
That was a really good setup. They get the triple stun as well. He's gonna die. Oh, he's gonna kick already. He does. Oh my god, that was huge.
That was unexpected.
Streaming actually used his root at the exact same time as Iroh leaped, so he wasn't able to kite away. Otherwise, he actually would have got out of that situation. And then Unix once again followed up the incap with his capacitor stun. The Druid kited too close to his elemental. They got the double leg sweep. So even though they did get the Iron Bark in between, it wasn't enough. And that was so close. But in the end, it is actually Unitas that break the unbeaten record of Gronks, who have so far been 5-0 in this tournament. They lose that one game, but this was the ultimate map choice, right? Like, Ruins of Lordaeron is the map you want to be on as Windwalker Death Knight, and now they have to repeat the job on presumably Tolvaron Arena and something like Ashermane's 4. It's going to be really challenging, but obviously signs of life from this team. They don't want to go down without a fight.
Yeah, I actually did like that, because it started out slow. Like, it looked like he got peeled at the beginning, and he wasn't going to be able to get too much of the touch of death. Felt like they were prepared, and then he was able to go through. And I think maybe that's how they're going to have to get the kill windows, where they actually stack both cooldowns and staggering them. I think they end up staggering their Pillars of Frost, and they stagger, the touch of death. I think they showed it's not really possible for them to get the kill. I think they just need to go for a one true all-in, right? And just hope they get that kill in that time. Because, I mean, if they don't kill there, we've seen how every other game has gone, where they're just able to get a fast finish onto them. And, I mean, that's the most important thing for Gronks is going to leg out for. They just want to make sure that they can just barely stay alive and then just finish the game nice and smooth.
I mean, that's obviously, like we've been talking about a little bit, but that's kind of like the game plans or the win conditions for these teams, right? You got Unitas, who are playing that all-in composition. Restoration Shaman spamming Purge costs a lot of his mana pool, so it means he won't be able to heal for too long, keep his melee DPS alive. And on the flip side, you got the Thunder Cleave on the side of Gronks, that Elemental Shaman especially, very good at kiting away. And I definitely think one of the things that I've liked, one of the adaptations from Unitas, is that they've been putting less focus on attacking the Restoration Druid and putting more on the Elemental Shaman, because what that does is, even though it's perhaps a slightly harder target to kill, if the Elemental Shaman's in Ghost Wolf, he's not really dealing too much damage, right? So it makes it a lot easier for Unix to stay offensive and spam those Purges, which definitely worked well for them in that game. But unsurprisingly, we see Tolvaron as the map choice coming out of Gronks, and I mean, as you can imagine, the Elemental is going to have a playground here.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I mean, I think you actually are right on them wanting to go into the LA Shaman, because if we saw first game, I think they mostly tried to focus Warrior and Druid, right? And didn't work out for them. Iroh ended up actually getting the game-winning play where he got a Hex full onto Unix, right? And I believe the same thing happened to the last game. They tried to all-in and kill Voltrak. Didn't work out for them. So going on Iroh, I think that's your best option, because he's pretty much the one that's going to be setting up any of the kills that do win the game early. So by going on to him, you give yourself a little bit more time to maybe wait for the other team to kind of go through everything. And if you are able to get a clutch root like Streaming did, and you root his leap, his gust of wind, then that actually opens up a kill for you. Obviously, that's not 100% reliable that you're always going to do that. But, I mean, if it does happen, which it will, that can absolutely win a game like we just saw happen.
Yep. And if you are tuning in now, just tuning in, this is Gronks versus Unitas. The series 2-1 in favor of Gronks, one game away from securing that top 3 spot for this cup and advancing to that upper bracket finals. Definitely looking to do that. They have the map choice. They have the momentum to do it. Ira is the shaman. We're going to be watching him very closely in this game to see if he's able to kite away from the 2 devastating melee DPS on the side of Unitas. You can see Zyra Taylor, aka Streaming, trying to get the connection, but Nook's doing a great job once again, hamstringing him essentially from reaching Ira, who's kiting away in that Ghost Wolf. Doing such a good job. It's just so hard.
Yeah, you can see him struggling. I think maybe this is a situation where they're going to have to not go into another target, because once they are prepared for Ira being a kill target, I think things get really scary. But they're chunking. Oh, they're chunking. They get him in the Earthshock into a full Stormbolt, forcing the Trinket Karma very early into this game. They got the early momentum. And I think this is just because they're just having to waddle there, chase out the LA Shaman, who is just running away and who's not going to let himself be a kill target. And, you know, I think they just have to go for setups onto another target and wait until the LA has opened himself up into a situation where he can die. Otherwise, until then, things are a little bit scary for him, I feel like.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Nooks is obviously the easiest target hit. He's the one who's closest to you, but he also is the tankiest. He has that defensive stance for the large damage reduction, which is basically up the entire time. And we can see good crowd control coming out of Unix, onto Unix rather right now.
Oh,
I really like that Hex. You see Nate dropping very low, doesn't have the touch of karma already. He's trying to kite away. I actually would like to see him playing a little bit more defensively in this situation, but he knows he has to all in. We see Iro trades out that Astral Shift, so they do have the win condition here. They force that big defensive cordon, and there's no Iron Bark, and they do have the touch of death, so they have to try to for a setup with that and the purges.
Yeah, they have
they do. They have everything.
They have everything. This has to be their kill window. The only thing they have is trinkets. They are using the touch of death, get the in cap out there. They have a lot of damage going on to Iro, insta disarm onto Streaming, and that actually is going to peel the setup. I mean, that was really unfortunate. They wanted to get that all in. They wanted to get the kill right there, but I think Ira this time was more prepared, even though he didn't have his wall and everything like that. I think they gave that setup a lot more respect, and he was able to actually kite away and wasn't actually able to get rooted on that gust of wind like it happened the other game, and that is able to save his life.
Yeah, I mean, it was big plays from everyone. Nook's got the great disarm on the Pillar of Frost. We saw Iro kiting away, and of course, Volshock unfortunately was DR'd, I believe, on the in-cap there, and they didn't have any follow-up crowd control, so he was just able to heal through. But you can see how much pressure is being put on Volshock right now. He's used a lot of his mana pool already. They're getting a lot of pressure onto Streaming, though. He trades out that Icebound Fortitude. Huge heal with that one. Touch of Karma still available for Primes as well. So they do have the defensive clearance to stay offensive at this moment in time, but at the same time, Gronk's looking so stable. They have all 3 trinkets. You can see Iro really utilizing this big map, kiting away as much as possible and making it so hard for Streaming to connect.
Yeah, and I do like, again, just they're playing a little bit better with the strategy by just kind of running through the mana, and they are swapping things up, and I like how it's being done instead of just trying to have this game where they're super all-inning. They're playing really conservative, and Unix actually isn't even going for those purges. He's actually just trying to keep them in the game, and that seems to be working out really well for them, especially mana-wise. Now they have this extra pressure onto Nux and onto Voltrak. I mean, they're really struggling to find out a way to punish this, and this is match point right here, is it not?
Yeah, it is for at least if Gronks can win this game, but they're not looking so great right now. Nooks had to trade out a lot of defensive cooldowns there. That was the Rallying Cry, the Die by the Sword, and the Trinket from him. And Unix, one of the things he's been doing such a great job of in this tournament in general is getting those drinks. He actually used a lot of his mana at the start of this game, was able to sit down, regenerate all that mana, and now he's able to purge again. And looking at the situation, Iro isn't a great kill target, but Nook certainly is if they can connect. They force double trinket here as well, so everyone's without a trinket right now. They have so many opportunities to win this game, and Unitas showing signs of life, signs of fire, trying to win game 4.
Yeah. I mean, they're forcing that wall right there. They're getting a lot of damage onto Iro, and they're making it so hard for him to actually get that offensive pressure. I mean, that's just been the best thing to do this game. It really has done so much more for them. I think they actually want the game to somehow go longer than actually having their games end quickly, which happens if they just ignore Iro. They realize that he is really making some heavy plays, and shutting him down is the most important thing. He is the number 1 priority. But now we see Unix just using a lot of his mana. He really committed there, trying to get a lot of pressure in this all in here. And now he's put his mana way below Voltrox at this point. And I mean, when we saw it just a minute earlier, he was just completely full mana. You know, he has been going for these drinks to recover, but they go for a setup right now. They don't have the touch of death just yet, but they are just trying to keep up that constant momentum, trying to get a lot of damage here. But no, there's no karma. He can't get out.
He died. It was the war stomp from Volshock that killed him of all things. It was the DR war stomp. That's such a painful way to die. I was just about to say, Volshock actually blinked in at some point there to save Nooks, and he was a huge kill target. But because he didn't have that blink, he stayed in after the setup and he war stomps for the kill. And that means that, well, I mean, you can ask, how do you like your steak? I think in this case, they like their steak primes. He does drop down there, and it's going to be a 3-1 victory for Gronks, who looked so good. I was gonna say a little different. Like, how do you like your Windwalker? Do you like in primes? But it's gonna be the 3-1 victory that's coming out of them, and Gronks now are going to be advancing to the upper bracket final. I really hope that's the next series we have going, because they're going to be playing against potentially a Turbo Cleave, which will be an incredibly fun matchup to watch. But yeah, so we're going to be looking at that one. It should be the semi-finals coming up next, guys, and that will, of course, decide which team is going to be advancing. We have our top 3 now, or at least we have 2 of our teams for our top 3, and that will decide who moves up into that upper bracket grand final, or the grand final of the entire tournament. In fact, Unhandsome Men versus Gronks will be our next series, but we're going to be hopping into a quick break before we get into that one, so we'll see you guys after this.